Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about choosing the best method of presentation for your audience. We know that people don't read instructions and manuals for fun like they do novels, so the way that information is presented in novels doesn't work for instructions and manuals. In other words, you can't just have paragraphs of text like you see here and expect people to read what you've written. We need to present the information in a way that makes it easier for our readers to read. So I'm going to outline a few methods that you can use in this presentation. The first one is bullet lists. Now we all know about bullet lists, but I want to give you a couple of guidelines to use bullet lists maybe better than you have before. So when you use a bullet list, you don't want to use end punctuation if whatever is in the bullet is an incomplete sentence. If it is a complete sentence, do use end punctuation. In other words, put a period at the end of each bullet. Capitalize the first letter of the first word in every list item. Use parallel structure. We'll see an example of that in just a moment. Always introduce every list with a sentence or a phrase. Don't just jump into a bullet list. Make sure that it's introduced. And then never use bullets for a list of chronological items. Always use numbered lists instead. So here's an example. Techniques for using a catch, pull, or snare. Now these examples come from the Animal Control Officer Training Manual that we're going to be using later on in the semester. So we have our bullet list. One method of using a catch pull is to have the loop enclose both the head and one forelimb of the animal. So there's a couple sentences in the first bullet. Second bullet is slide the catch pull along the ground towards the animal. Third one, once the catch pull has crossed the animal's personal space. And then the fourth one, never use the catch pull to lift any animal. So one of the things that this bullet list is not doing well is it is not in parallel structure. So notice that the second and fourth bullets are both imperative mood. They both start with a verb in a command form, but the first and the third bullets do not. So these bullets are not parallel structure. Each one should either be in imperative mood or each one should be in some other grammatical form. It doesn't necessarily matter what the grammatical form is, but they all need to be the same. This one does use end punctuation for these complete sentences, but it's a little strange to have such long bullets, so there may be a better option here. Now, it also does not, it's not introduced by a sentence or a paragraph. Techniques for using a catch, pull, or snare, that's more of a heading. It's not a complete sentence. And so in this case, it jumps straight from a heading into a bullet list. We need some kind of an introduction before we get to this list. Here's an example with much shorter bullets. The animal will either attempt to hide, run, or fight. Now notice that we have those end punctuation marks after each of these words. We can fix this, make it a little bit better by, first of all, removing the colon after the word to in that introductory sentence there. Unless that introductory sentence is a complete sentence, we do not need a colon there. And then I've removed the end punctuation from each item because they're not complete sentences. Now I left the words in each bullet lowercase in this case just because they're one word. So I know that violates one of the rules I gave to you. This one I think maybe we can be a little bit more flexible on. Checklists are another good option. They function just like bullet lists, but they kind of help encourage your reader to envision accomplishing different tasks. Shaded text boxes are one of my favorite ways to display information that you really need a reader to notice. So especially useful for warnings, cautions, notes, examples, and so on. So in this case, we have this paragraph here, and it's kind of hard to tell, but there's a lot of text here that's bolded. And when so much text is bolded, the emphasis kind of isn't as apparent. So if we really want people to read the information in this paragraph, we can put it in some kind of a shaded box like this. This is going to make it stand out a lot from the other information in the manual so that we're more certain that our readers will be able to, or that our readers will notice it. Sidebar texts are another one of my favorites. You see this a lot in well-designed textbooks, but this is where we have information that's pulled out of some paragraphs of text and put into the margins of our document. So the learning objectives here in this first example would be sidebar text, and then we also have a little call out to learn more off in the margin here. This is a great way to draw readers' attention to really important information. Fast track summaries just provide a really high level summary with just a little bit of detail. If your reader's more knowledgeable, these can be helpful. Tables we're familiar with, but they can be really helpful to organize a large amount of information. So if we have something like this where we're talking about extension of arms, this is equipment that allows you to control an animal without getting too close, or catch poles and snares, stuff like this, we can organize it into a table that allows readers to really get the information they want quickly. So in this case, we have whatever the equipment is in the first column, a description of its use, and then some examples in the far right column. Step-by-step procedures, we've been working with these already with the crochet instructions and the other things we've done. We know that when we're telling somebody how to do something step by step, we use imperative voice and we leave out unnecessary words like you should or when trying. What I want to point out here is that there are instances when we're especially revising kind of longer manuals that we'll be able to pull out shorter instances of step-by-step instructions. So I'll show you an example in just a minute. In this case, we're using this bullet list to tell people what they should do to calm a dog down. And as I read through this, first thing is to move, then to talk in a soft voice to the dog, squat down on one knee, and so on. I think there's a good chance that this could be the sequence that we should do these things in. The first thing we should do is maybe move away from the dog, give it a little bit more space. Then we should talk softly to it. Then we can squat down on one knee and so on. If that's the case, then this should be a numbered list, not a bullet list. In this case, we can read through this bullet list and talk about whether we think this is a procedure of some kind. A short underhand or sidearm throw is most effective since it's less frightening. In some situations, the rope may not have to be thrown at all. Once you have applied the rope to the dog, use the rope to bring the animal closer to you. Lead larger dogs to your vehicle. Use the rope. So it seems to me that in this case, this information should probably be in some kind of a paragraph. These first two bullets are not really giving us any procedural information. It's giving us more introductory information. And then we get to some procedural information. I see imperative voice here. Use the rope to bring the animal closer to you. Lead larger dogs to your vehicle. Use the rope to control the head. Never lift any animal. So we have some procedures in these last three bullets, but not necessarily in the first ones. All right, and then finally, same question here. Make sure to use a trap that is the right size for the animal being captured. After setting the trap properly, check it at least once a day. Check the traps more often. I'm seeing a lot of imperative voice in this paragraph, and that makes me think, well, maybe this should be organized not as a paragraph, but as step-by-step instructions. Flow diagrams are really useful for decision-making processes, to show decision-making processes. For complex decisions, it's not feasible or possible to illustrate every step. Technical illustrations work really well in showing specific details that maybe a photograph wouldn't necessarily show. Warnings, cautions, and notes should always be placed before the procedure that they relate to so that your reader will be sure to see them before they try to carry out that procedure. And you want to really visually emphasize these by putting an icon next to it, putting it in one of those shaded boxes, or emphasizing it in some other way. Photographs can show what something looks like, but if you really want that level of detail, a line drawing can be better. Here's an example where a photograph can work if we're talking about what an aggressive dog might look like, and show a photograph of an aggressive dog. And that's all I have for you today. I hope this was helpful in giving you some ideas about how you can display information to best help your readers. Thanks, everybody.